The massive forests of Rundai Free served as a good training field for ground missions for both interceptors and orbital artillery cadets. The thick foliage and dense fogs obstructed vision and interfered with sensors, making it impossible to take a completely computer-targeted shot. And when the interior wanted to send their cadets out to hunt down a simulated downed pilot, escape dangerous elements, or bog-average partisan hunting, Rundai Free served quite well. Proper maps, patrol patterns, and every single contingency had been drilled and prepared time and time again, and many interior cadets would stalk these dense forests many times over their career. The pair of human pilots were blissfully ignorant of this fact, as they lay face down in ranger graves, letting the fog roll over them with pistols drawn as the idle chatter of a pod of cadets passed within feet of them. Already they had been running for hours. When the interior branded gunship flew over their heads and crash site, they realized time was up and bolted into the forest. Their pistols hung in their holsters, and the green and brown flight uniforms blended in well with the dark forest as they sprinted through the underbrush to gain distance from the downed interceptor. They only realized that the enemies had gotten close when a pair of loud cracks from simulated grenades echoed through the dimming light. Someone had opened their box. Shulvanti flashbangs were eerily similar to their human counterpart, a long cylinder with a ring to pull and a spoon to fly away when released, so setting up a basic tension trap was easy for the pilots. Set up some spicy bait like the box their sear supplies were stored in created a trigger few could ignore. Already they could see the benefits of their work, as one of the interior cadets has her helmet off, trying to clear her eyes and speaking louder than everyone else. They watched as the group passed, yanking their auto-turrets along behind them and muttering angrily about the jungle and how stupid the humans were to leave such a blatant track like this. Perfect ambush. Or rather, it would be a perfect ambush if the two pilots hiding had anything more powerful than pistols set to hurt, and knew that if they took this patrol out, the gunship would have an easier time finding them. The game today is hide and seek, not search and destroy. And so they watched, breath held, as the pod of cadets moved further down the trail, and then kept still until the voices faded into the distance. Only then did the two aviators remove themselves from the hand-scraped ditches and begin to slowly move further into the jungle. Survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. They would not be found tonight. And another thing! If these Turok shit periphery yeast infections didn't decide to be absolute cunts and trap their supply box, then maybe we would have dealt with them already. We wouldn't be ambling through this goddess-forsaken jungle with its stupid brush and... Triumphant 3, shut the fuck up, you whiny bitch. Triumphant 1 ordered sharply. And put your damn bucket back on. I don't want to lose a member of my pod because they trip and split their head skull open. Again. Yes, again. Shut your mouth, Triumphant 2, and get your scope up. With this fog, we'll need your thermals. Yes, mistress. The woman known as Triumphant 2 said, pulling the scope off her rifle and clipping it to her helmet. There was a faint whirring as high-penetration thermal scanners began to show the world in muted blues and bright reds. Unfortunately, the thick jungle fog, though pleasant and reminding the pod of days spent on Chill's beaches, wreaked merry havoc with the thermal imaging. Triumphant 2 sighed. I can't see anything past a meter or so. Fog's too thick and too hot. I knew it would bite us, Triumphant 3 said. We should have kept the gunship on standby above, but no! We have to hunt these pilots down on foot. Shut it, Triumphant 3. We'd be laughed out to the academy if we chased some grav riders down in a gunship. They're pilots, not hardy marines. I heard Victoria's pod ended up hunting some commandos as their exam, and here we are stuck hunting grav riders who don't even have the common decency to use their famous human stamina to lead us on a merry chase, Triumphant 1 shouted. But no, we're having to dig through the forest like we're a bunch of recruits after the drill matron dropped her favourite rock. The other members of the pod paused, and turned to watch as Triumphant 1 ranted and raved about perceived injustices and how unfair the humans had been, letting Triumphant 4 slowly move away from the group. Her camera and recorder had been damaged by a recent fall in the humidity, and orders were given to her that existed quite outside of the briefing. Her pod believed that the humans were to suffer an accident for angering a noble, while true, this wasn't the full truth. The interior was good at accidents. A wound that never heals right, nerve damage from an overpowered shot in the wrong place, a colour-blinded eye, a shattered hand. All things well known to the Empress's hatchet woman, but for her, Triumphant 4, fifth daughter of Shanxi Orlon, the spare of spares until a fateful day, she had a chance of power. Real power. Not simply holding the sword of her older sisters. And all she had to do was make sure the humans didn't suffer an accident. She had to make sure they ended up dead. Her rifle's power setting was pushed ever so subtly to lethal. As the sun rose and fell, the hunter and the hunted danced that ancient dance. Predator pursuing prey, and marching into the cunning ambusher's traps. Snare and deadfall, pit and noose were the order of the evening, as a new moon rose and no light shone onto the dense leaves. Small, foot-deep holes were dug with combat knives into trails and covered up with foliage for the unaware interior cadets to step in, but sturdy boots and night vision optics kept their foolishness from turning into broken ankles. Flash grenades and concussion explosives tied to tripwires, or just tripwires, forced the hunting pod to slow down and let the pilots pull ahead and move swiftly, but the surging gunship forces them to ground time and time again. It seemed the cadets had swallowed their pride and called in their ace in the hole, even after complaining how bad it would make them look. Searchlights scoured the tree line with thermal and LIDAR scanners, pushing deeper through the thick foliage to try and find abnormalities, and hopefully, the pilots. But the pilots remained hidden, a single stumbling step ahead. And high above the hunters and the hunted, above the gunship, sat a vessel in total silence and stillness. And as clouds obscured even the stars from light, 3 figures dropped from the stealth shuttle in absolute quiet. Cookie pressed himself against a tree, praying to God that the soldier who just moved into the clearing didn't have thermal goggles. He and Milk had been separated an hour ago under the hail of gunship fire, and the radios in their suits had been jammed. Ryan Kennedy was breathing hard, pain shooting up his upper thigh from where a near miss turned his olive-green fight suit a burnt black. He looked down and gave the bandage a quick check. No blood. Heartbeat hammering in his head, he watched as the lone woman began to look around, visor glowing a faint orange. "You know," she began, "it's just my camera that's broken. My thermals are working quite well. Without breaching your flight suit, you're leaking heat. It's only a matter of time, really." She spun around and put a burst of fire into and through a large pale pink tree, sending hardwood splinters flying out like shrapnel as the superheated energy her weapon fired flashed boiled the sap running through its trunk. "It's only a matter of time, and personally my time is much more valuable than yours, and not only because I'm a noble." She keeps moving and Ryan moves with her, almost. He shifts his weight and rolls into the brush, keeping eyes firmly on the woman, and tries to get behind something a bit more solid than foliage. A rock would be nice. Leaves rustled and he froze. That wasn't from him, and there were no bushes where his hunter was moving. There was someone else in this forest with them. Triumphant 4 looked at the jungle through orange-tinted vision. She had a pretty good idea of where one of the humans was, huddled behind a tree, but the exact location was harder to pinpoint, even with the heat bleeding from the hole in his uniform. And she knew it was the male. The woman had been cornered by the other members of her pod in a cave, so it would be over soon. But back to the male. Smaller than she liked, she preferred taller men, but it might be fun to have some fun with him before killing him, of course. No harm in it. It was always fun when they cried. She put a burst of fire through another tree, more out of habit than anything else. Seeing the wood explode always put a smile on her face. The fog began to roll in further, sending curling spirals of mist through her thermal vision, but not enough to make her stop. "Come on out, human. You don't need to hide from me. I just want to have a bit of fun before dragging you back to your commands." It was a blatant lie, but Triumphant 4's sister says some of the dumb humans had believed it on Earth. How did it go? Ollie Ollie oxen free? She swept the weapon over a patch of foliage and almost jumped in glee when the sensors indicated a spot of temperature. There could only be a human body hiding out in the bush. She smiled. "Oh, human, I see you." It would be easy to kill him there. A single shot, a single finger twitch, and the thermal shock and organ damage would cause a lingering, painful death. But that's not fun. So she walked slowly through the gathering fog, ignoring the strange blurs in her thermals as she got even closer to the prone figure, fumbling for a pistol held in the chest harness he had pressed into the ground. "Oh, don't do that. You don't need a weapon. We can have a nice bit of fun, just me and you. And the instructors won't ever find out." She smiled and taunted, ignoring the little warning light on her helmet, informing her that not only were her interpod comms being jammed, but her own equipment jammer had been turned off by an outside force. Milk sat quietly in a cave, centering herself. She could hear the 3 members of the interior pod outside, bantering back and forth, and yelling insults into the gaping maw of the cave, not willing to brave the cramped depths just yet. All to her benefit. She wasn't much of a soldier, at least not when separated from her beloved WSO console, but she still trained with a pistol, and could reasonably count on hitting her targets. But that's just the thing, targets. She could plug 5 shots into a grouping the size of a dollar coin at 20 paces on a rolling ship, but those targets were still paper and steady. She could calculate missile interception range and trajectory, but the moment a target began to shift, she lost all her shooter's trig. So Milk was breathing steadily, carefully moving the bulky laser pistol up and shifting into a shooter's stance before letting it drop over and over and over, getting used to the heft and tug of gravity that would throw off her aim. She practiced sighting on 3 different rocks inside the cave, listening to the soldiers taunt about all the fun they'd be having with Cookie. She almost switched the weapon off non-lethal. But the WSO had better discipline than that, so she took one last breath and turned to the cave's entrance and only exit. Crouching low, the Iris lass readied herself for this attack. She had one chance to surprise the cadets waiting at the mouth of the cave, one chance to push through and make a break for the tree line. If she could pull this off, she'd be able to hopefully link back up with Cookie and keep moving. But none of that mattered if she didn't get out of this damn cave. She took one last deep breath, shifting her grip on the heavy laser pistol and rolling her shoulders. It was time. She took a deep breath and moved. The 3 interior cadets were highlighted in the spotlight of their gunship, perfect silhouettes for her to aim at. Breathing, trigger discipline, sight picture, aim for center mass. She brought the pistol up on the first target and fired. The sniper lady had turned sideways to shout at one of her compatriots, barely avoiding the shot. The second shot caught the squad leader in the shoulder, sending her reeling back in pain. The third shot hit the final pod member's center mass, but splashed against her ceramic breastplate, causing no damage. And Milk was still out of cover. All she could do was watch, as the pod members brought their rifles up, and 3 shots rang out in unison. Triumphant 4 turned her head to listen, as a lopsided volley of fire echoed through the jungle, before turning back to the human slowly trying to crawl away from her. When he tried to rise, she kicked him clean in the chest, forcing him onto his back. And now he tries in vain to escape her. Through the thermal lenses, she could see his body flushed with heat as panic set in, and the sight was good. And then he froze. "What, human? Tired of running?" she mocked. "I thought you were supposed to be an endurance fighter." He shakily raised an arm and pointed behind her. Triumphant 4 rolled her eyes. How dumb did this human think she was? "Might as well indulge you," she muttered, keeping her rifle trained at his chest as she turned around. Through the orange tint of her thermal goggles, all she could see is a shimmering mist like distortion, and her HUD beginning to indicate it was suffering from system errors. "Piece of second-rate Rick's crap," Triumphant 4 muttered, before reaching to turn off the computerized lenses and looking into the forest with her own eyes. Ignoring every bit of training regarding removing equipment in the combat arena, she pulls off her helmet and freezes, as she looks into the asymmetrically eyed mask of Death herself. Standing before her, audio recorder in one hand and pistol held low in the other, was a member of the Empress's own Death's Head Commandos. And she did not look happy.